This is the Hebrew alphabet part 2. We will be focused on our vowel marks. We call these niqqudot. They are basically the diacritical points that we see around the consonantal system. And these marks indicate how the vowels are to be read. And that is going to let us know what parts of speech we're talking about, whether things are nouns or verbs, and what the actual conjugation of the verb is. They're not always there in the most ancient texts, actually, because the ancient texts did not have these marks. However, in time, these marks were added to reflect the spoken or oral tradition that was given. And it's from there that the sense of the text is understood. After following that, we're going to talk about the dagesh and then the Tiberian vowel system itself. We'll do some reading practice, discuss half vowels, and cap off with a discussion of the Matres lectionis and the plain versus defective readings. I hope it won't take too long. But this is a key for your early Hebrew. You need to be able to read. So the dagesh is basically a dot that's inside a letter, and it means a couple of things. The first thing is it means that a letter is doubled. So when you read a text, it's very infrequent when you would see consonants written side by side as the same consonant written side by side. Instead, you'd see it written once, and you would know by speech whether you doubled that when you spoke aloud or not. So in time, the doubled consonant is marked with this dagesh, this dot inside. So if you look at the lamed on the right, the first lamed is just one L. The second lamed is two L's. And moving leftward, we see a bet and a vet, or bet that has a hard sound and bet which has a soft sound. So remember those 6 letters, the beged kefet letters, they all have 2 sounds. And when you see a dot inside one of them, it means it's a hard sound. When there's no dot, it's a soft sound. So in this case, the dot inside the bet means we read it as a b, a B sound. And the soft sound will never take a dagesh. You won't have a double V, for instance. You won't have v, you would just have. So the 2 uses, doubling and marking the hard point, or marking a hard letter, one of the beged kefet letters. Now the vowel marks, the niqqudot that we have, you can look at the right column, and the right column is going to have the actual look of each of these marks. And I've included the name and the transliteration of all the marks here too. Some of these may seem a little antiquated, like the first one, the patach and the qametz. Nowadays, they both basically make the ah sound. Probably historically, the patach makes an a short a, and the qametz makes a long a, an ah. And there's phonological reasons that we know this. The long a often shifts to an o sound, so you'll encounter something called the qametz hatuf in some readings of biblical Hebrew, where this closed unaccented syllable of a qametz makes an o sound. So a word like wisdom, chokhmah, is written with a qametz in the front. So ah, it's sufficient just to say ah for both these days. That's followed by a shva, and a shva is 2 vertical dots, and it's like a half vowel. It either marks that the consonant is silent, meaning it's just making the sound of the consonant, or it's sort of a half vowel, b, something like that. The segol is 3 dots, 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom, and it makes an sound, a normal eh. The sere, just 2 horizontal dots, is a. The chirek is just 1 dot on the bottom, and it's an e sound, e. The cholam is a dot in the top left, and it makes an o sound. And then the kibbutz is an u, where it's 3 vertical dots descending toward the right, from the top to the right, and that makes an u sound. So the a vowel class, patach and qametz, ah. The I and E class vowels. So you'll see some grammars, they'll separate I and E class from one another. I like to keep A, I, and U as the vowel classes just because that reflects more comparative Semitic. You can see this like in the Arabic tanween and things like this. So I'm grouping them together here. We have the shva, the segol, the sere, and the hirik. Remember, I'm reading from the right to the left, okay? The right to the left. So on the right, the 2 vertical dots is a shva. The 3 dots in the triangle is a segol, main e. The sere, which is 2 horizontal dots, is a. And the hirik, which is 1 dot, is e. Again, reading from right to left, we have our U and O class vowels. Basically, these are U class vowels. We can read them as O and U. So on the right is the holem, O, and on the left is the kibbutz, which is U. That's the 3 descending dots. Now I'm going to go through a list of all of the letters, and we're just going to read and listen. And what I recommend you doing for this part is, first of all, just read with your eyes and listen with your ears so that you match the sound that you hear with what your eyes are reading. Then go back and practice reading yourself, or pause the video after each read and go back and try and see if you're getting it right, and do this video until they get right. Okay. I've marked some of these letters in red just because you don't really see them occurring, or they're irregular, right? And look, sometimes it happens in the Jewish scriptures, the Hebrew Bible. There are times where these irregularities happen. Sometimes there's a good explanation, other times there isn't, and it's really interesting. Or maybe we just don't know the explanation, or the rabbis, they'll talk about it and argue about it, and that's a really, the arguments are always the most fascinating discussions because they pull wisdom from all sorts of different directions. And so here, I'm just doing this basically to help you practice reading. Okay, so I don't expect some of the more, call it theoretical, readings for you to memorize, but just know what the vowel looks like and how it sounds with each consonant. Okay, so let's begin. Aleph, we're going to start. Remember, we're always starting on the right side, and we're moving to the left. Okay, so a, e, e, o, u. So notice the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph, we like to think of it as an A, like alpha. But it's actually not. It's just it holds a vowel, right? I think I said it was a glottal stop in my previous video, and it just holds a vowel. And you can see this really runs the gamut of all the vowels. Next, we have bet, ba, ba, be, 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 bi, bo, bu. Va, va, the, ve, vi, vo, vu. Ga, ga, g, ge, ge, gi, go, gu. I'm going to read this 2 ways, the regular modern Hebrew way, as you'll probably be taught in your Hebrew classes if you're not in this class and you're just watching the video. And then I'll read it the historical comparative Semitic way. And again, it's for your choice, or just do whatever your teacher says, but it's for your knowledge too. And it can help when students are first learning to connect sound with spelling. So first, ga, g, ge, ge, gi, go, gu, or alternatively, ra, ra, r, re, re, ri, ro, ru. Same with the dalet. We will read da, da, d, de, de, di, do, do. And then the modern typical pronunciation would be da, da, de, they, the, do, do, or alternatively, the, the, they, the, though, the. Ha, ha, h. Again, this doesn't really occur. It may or may not in the Hebrew Bible. I don't have an example off the top of my head. He, hey, he, ho, who. Now, wow or vav can be pronounced two different ways depending on whose pronunciation you're going to follow. The modern Israeli pronunciation would go the, the, they, the, vo, vu, and the historical or the comparative Semitic pronunciation would be wa, wa, w, we, we, wo, woo. And actually, this side the holem here over the vav most often is read as a matra lectionis. We'll come back to that at the end of this conversation, where this would be read as o more often than wo or vo, and you would actually have two vavs to articulate that consonantal sign. But we'll come back to that. Zain gives us za, za, z, ze, ze, z, zo, zu. By now, we're getting a rhythm with the sound of all the different vowel marks, the niqqudot. Cha, cha, ch, che, che, chi, cho, chu. Again, this is not often, irregular. I'll pronounce this two ways, just given the different pronunciation styles. So the first, the modern Israeli pronunciation, ta, ta, t, te, te, ti, to, tu. The comparative Semitic or historical, fa, fa, th, te, te, ti, fo, fu. The yod, ya, 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 y, ye, yi, yo, you. The kaf, ka, ka, k, ke, ki, ko, ku, the spirantized form. Cha, cha, ch, che, chi, cho, chu. Lamed, la, l, le, li, lo, lu. Mim, ma, me, me, mi, mo, mu. Nun, na, no, ne, ne, ni, no, nu. Samek. Sa, se, say, si, so, su. And this letter, I'm going to pronounce it according to the comparative Semitic or Aramaic, Arabic form. Actually, let me do the modern Israeli, or it's complicated because this kind of sounds like aleph if the actual guttural ayin is not pronounced. So the common way of speaking would be a, e, o, u, but comparative Semitically or historically, we'd have a, I, ru, ru. Hey, we have pa, p, pe, pi, po, pu. Spirantized form. Fa, fe, fe, fi, fo, fu. Salde. We'll do the regular the regular modern pronunciation first. Sa, sa, s, se, si, so, su, and then the historical or comparative Semitic. Sa, sa, s, se, si, so, su. Now we have kof, which, or kuf, as they say, in the modern pronunciation would just come across like ka, ka, k, ke, ki, ko, ku. So it sounds like a K, basically, in English. Historical or comparative Semitic, you'd say ka, ka, k, ke, ke, ko, ku. All right. Um, now the Rish, look, that just looks like a backwards R, so it should be really easy to read, right? Really easy to remember. The modern pronunciation sounds kind of Northern European. It sounds like a ra, ra, r, re, 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 ro, ru. I probably should have made this red as well. It's less frequent. It's Resh is treated as a guttural quite frequently. Now, alternatively, you can just pronounce it like the R that we know. If you really wanted to pronounce it like a trilled R, I guess you could. I don't know if there's evidence to distinguish that or not, but ra, sorry, ra, ra, r, re, re, ri, ro, ru. And by now, hopefully, it doesn't matter what consonant I'm saying. You are connecting these niqqudot, these vowel signs, and you're able to read them as I read them, right? Like that's the better point of the drill. Sin, sa, sa, se, si, so, su. Shin, sha, sh, she, sho, shu. Look at that really quickly. With the shin, you have a dot on both sides, and the dot in the top right is letting you know to read this character as shin. And so the dot in the left is the holum. So that's show. If we go back real quick and look at sin, we see two dots in the top left. And so one indicates that it's the letter sin, and the other indicates that it's a holum. So we have so in that case. Finally, we have tav or tau. We'd say ta, te, te, ti, to, tu. And the final ta in the modern pronunciation is basically the same. It's just, a T. Ta, te, ti, to, tu. If you want to make it a TH, spirantize it, it'd be tha, th, the, tho, thu. Okay. So understand the phonetics behind it. Don't feel as though you have to do the historical or comparative Semitic pronunciation. If you speak Aramaic or Arabic already, it should be natural for you, but don't force it otherwise. It's fine to just say it how is easiest for you and is common among learners. Again, go with your teacher, go with your teacher's pronunciation, but do understand there's a process and there's reasons why these things, are look different. Like there's not just one T, for example, right? There's different ways it's actually being articulated, or at least was historically. It's meaningful. So the half vowels, the khataf vowels, you have khataf patah, khataf qametz, khataf sego. These go under the guttural letters that don't do schwas well. They don't do the half vowel or the silent vowel, and so what ends up happening is they take one of these other vowel marks, right? So you have we'll go aleph, reading from top right to bottom right and leftward. Okay, so a, e, ha, he, cha, che, or just e. It does help to kind of think that even if you're thinking in your head that this is a more guttural sound rather than just an sound, ah, 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 that's going to help you when you read the text. know that there are different spellings, because learners, if they don't understand that there's a legitimate sound difference, at least historically, that it's easy to start misspelling things. And if you read, you'll know that this ayin down here had a different guttural sound than the aleph did. Now we look at the Matres lectionis. This literally means like the mother of reading. And it's just a way that some of these consonants indicate what the vowel is doing. So like I said, in the early days, you didn't have vowel marks anywhere, but you started to get this phenomenon where these consonants that are kind of like, like we do Y and W in English, where they're not real vowels, they're consonants, but sometimes you use them like vowels. They'll make oohs, w sounds, or y sounds. So here we have the hey, the vav, and the yod, and the H, the W or V, and the Y. And they're sometimes indicating to us the presence of a long vowel, right? They're markers of a long vowel. So for the A class, I'm just using bet as an example here. We have ba, it's a long vowel. This is a qamet hey. We have B, this is a hirak yod. Sego yod be, or be. Sego yod be, or sego he be. And then the U class, we have bo, which is sometimes written with the holem and the hey. And then bu, this is called a shurek. A shurek. Actually, I'm missing one. Now let's look at full readings and defective readings. So I have a little sentence here that David loves his horse. Okay, David ohev suso. David ohev suso. So if you look at the bottom, older texts, or at least the more antiquated spellings, and thus they become defective spellings in the text, won't have these matres lectionis that I've highlighted in red here, right? Instead, they just are written, let's say for David, we have, dalet vav dalet, but we mark it with a hirik here to indicate it's David. Well, at different points, we see a yod placed in between the vav and the second dalet to indicate the long I sound here, David. Same with ohev. Here we have a holem in the defective spelling, but instead we have a holem vav in the full spelling, right? So a full other letter. These are exactly the same words, exactly the same sounds, but the spelling convention is different. One is full, the other is defective. Same with suso. So sus is the word for horse, suso, his horse. We have the shurek, which is the u, and instead we have the kibbutz here, suso, okay? So that's basically it for reading with the niqqudot. Now, practice, practice, practice. Watch the video as much as you need to. You should be able to make the sounds of reading Hebrew, even if you don't know what you're saying. You should be able to read the alphabet now, knowing the consonantal letters, the alphabet that we learned in the first video, and in the second video, the vowel signs. Keep coming back. Practice, practice, practice.